Hey everybody, it's Eric live alongside Rod to talk about Michigan State's loss to the Blue Devils, 66-60. Sorry, running a little bit late. Just some stuff came up today. So this is a huge top 10 matchup between number 4 Duke, number 7 MSU, and game doesn't disappoint unless you love offense and scoring, because there wasn't a whole lot of that. It's the kind of game you'd expect between two top 10 defenses, and they showed why today. Michigan State kept Duke from playing fast and how they wanted to attack, and Duke prevented Michigan State in the interior, disrupting MSU scoring in the paint. The crowd was electric at the Breslin Center. The crowd got a great game despite the final outcome. Michigan State held a 3-point lead heading into halftime, 34-31. Game was played within 5-point margin through the rest of the way with the lead changes and ties until Duke finally took control of the game at the very end. A couple defensive stops. They switched to 2-3 zone or 3-2 zone and got to the foul line quite a bit in the second half, especially 3 big ones by Isaiah Evans, who was fouled by Jordan Scott on a 3-point attempt with 1:35 left. He hit all 3, took a 2-point game to 5, and that just gave the Blue Devils a 5-point margin, which was enough for them to win. The game was very competitive. MSU had plenty of opportunities to win, and their kryptonite in this game was really an inability to finish at the rim. Some credit goes to Duke, and some blame to the Spartans. They finished 5 for 15 on layups. Also, Duke did a much better job attacking, forcing fouls by MSU in the second half, where they ended up shooting 19 free throws to Michigan State's 6. So I'll let you just turn over to you, Rod. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think those are all valid points as to what contributed to the eventual outcome, which was, I think, was the game tied with 2 minutes left?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I mean, that was it, right? We said we expected a tight game, and it was. And Duke made enough plays to win it. Michigan State did not. Give them credit, give Michigan State blame, to paraphrase Tom Izzo. He usually likes to frame it in those terms. I think the place I would like to start, though, is something that I think was a reaction of a lot of Michigan State fans that I saw, which I want to delve into a little bit, which was Michigan State, especially late in the game, their inability to really handle that 3-2 zone.
Yeah.
So there's a few points, and the bottom line is not debatable. Michigan State did not execute zone offense well. But I want to delve into just for everybody's edification into a few elements of what I think went into that. The first thing is this, and this is not, don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying Duke got lucky, that's why they won. But there was an element of luck in Duke finding that zone that stymied Michigan State late in the game. In this sense, Duke is not, and there were a couple of seasons where there was an exception. One was the year they had Jabari Parker. A second was the year they had Marvin Bagley, where they played a lot of zone because those teams had key players they needed offensively, but those guys couldn't guard their own shadow. So they had to hide them defensively.
Yeah.
But by and large, Coach K was a man defense guy. And John Shire has absolutely been that at Duke.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they never play a possession of zone, but it's rare. It's just this side of you being surprised if Tom Izzo busted out 6 minutes of zone. It's not quite that extreme, but pretty close. They went to it because Shire believed he didn't have a choice. Why did he not have a choice? Because his big men collectively were in immense amounts of foul trouble. Yeah. Most notably Cameron Boozer. But the problem was, one, they needed Boozer on the floor offensively, clearly.
Yeah.
With the second half he had. But they also they didn't have guys behind him who were in much better shape in terms of fouls. You know, Duke came out of halftime in foul trouble. Right, and quickly got into worse foul trouble early in the second half. So that move was not made, and I have not listened to it. I have been told by somebody who did that John Shire basically admitted this, that the move to the zone was not a grand strategic move on his part as much as it was, I got to do something to survive this. I got to keep my guys that I need on the offensive end in the game. That's why they did it. Now, it happened to work very well because Michigan State didn't attack it well. Why did they not attack it well? This is one of those Izonian, give them some credit, give us some blame stuff. Duke is the 4th tallest team in the country. And you saw it all day, the effect of their size at times.
Yep.
You mentioned the inability of Michigan State to finish layups. Oftentimes when you see that, it's a result of people seeing ghosts. And by that, I mean they're feeling length defensively, even if it's not there on a particular play. That wasn't the total explanation. You could chalk some of it up to Cam Ward's wrap on his hand. He all of a sudden couldn't finish when he had opportunities. He couldn't even catch the ball well. Carson Cooper missed some, Jackson Kohler, Cohen Carr. I mean, we had a number of guys, right? But I think Duke's length paid off that way to some extent. But the other way it really paid off, specific to the zone, is Michigan State could not get the ball into the gaps. Could not do it. They had Jackson Kohler, for the most part, operating in that role, which we've seen him do before. And Jackson is a good candidate for that role because he's got the ability to then turn around if he's not guarded and hit a 15-foot jumper. He's a reasonably good passer. That's what you want in that role. The only thing he doesn't do well that you ideally you would want a true triple threat, which means you'd want somebody who could go off the dribble from that spot if the opportunity presented itself. That's not really part of his game, but they do have other guys. We've seen Cam Ward in that role at times, but Cam today with the wrap, not a good candidate for it. Cooper, I think they like having running baseline against that. He'd be another guy who maybe could do it, but regardless, it never really got to the decisions that player was or wasn't making because the ball wasn't getting there. Right. And sometimes you can do it by virtue of dribble penetration. It's harder to dribble penetrate against the zone, but sometimes you can do it. Not today. Why did they have that much difficulty? I think Duke's length played a big role in that. And so again, it's just one of these things, the way the game unfolded kind of led to that happening. And it just happened to end up being something that played really positively for Duke on the defensive side and not well for Michigan State. Now, all that said, am I saying that it was impossible for Michigan State to execute against it? Of course not. They didn't do a good job. They weren't patient enough in some instances. In others, they weren't assertive enough. It was just a combination of things that led to them being out of sync. And that led to MSU just not being able to score. I mean, they scored 26 points in the second half. Got outscored by 9. That's not enough. Even when you're playing defense, Michigan State played a very good game for the most part defensively. That's a high-powered offense that they really limited. But it just wasn't enough. And that period, the last, whatever it was, 5-6 minutes, where Michigan State really struggled against that zone, I think is where the game was won by Duke, lost by Michigan State. So that's unfortunate. You start with Jeremy Fears, and I know there's going to be, and I'm sure already has been, a lot of criticism because Jeremy was 0 for 10 from the floor. That's the first time this year we've really seen him not burying some of those shots that you got to be able to hit. Right? Those mid-range jumpers, he's been really good. Just didn't happen today. Those runners in the lane, just didn't hit any of them. I think it should not be forgotten that he did an occasionally masterful job running the MSU offense. He tied his career high with 13 assists. He was brilliant at times, especially the first half, in running Michigan State's offense. In transition, he was great. He made great plays in the half court. I mean, just all the way around. The first half, he was everything you want to be. The second half, they put more on his shoulders, and that's gonna be an area that we have to watch because we spent some time talking about it in the preview that this might, the Arkansas game was close, but it wasn't like this one. Michigan State was kind of in control. This was one where, hey, 2 minutes left, it's there to be won or lost. And they don't have anybody who has yet emerged as the guy. I think
right.
My feeling, I think yours as well, is that Jeremy is the natural candidate. One, because he can always create for others and help them be a guy that can convert a play. But two, he's had the mindset and has been the guy who's hit big shots this year so far. And he didn't today. So it's certainly fair to criticize that. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, though. That was still a really good game on balance played by Jeremy Fears. They're not in position to have a chance to win it without him doing the things that he did at both ends.
Yeah.
It just, the shooting got to be better, right? We all know that. So I think those are, I saw that Izzo in his post game, and I would completely agree with this. He really, one of the things we talk about at every game that has enabled this team to be where they were coming into this game is the way they've just been a dominant rebounding team. I think there were stretches of this game where they were really good, but it wasn't consistent enough, and a lot of it came in the first half.
Yeah.
He said, and I got to believe him, they gave up 4 offensive rebounds on missed free throws to Duke.
Yes.
They hadn't given up a single one of those in a year. In a calendar year. Hadn't done it. Gave up 4 today. Now look, some of those, where the ball just takes a weird bounce off the front of the rim. Yeah, they were awkward plays. Doesn't matter. The ball's there. It's loose. You got to get it.
Yeah.
And they were just that half beat slow on too many occasions. And I think Duke got them for either 6 or 7 points on those. Well, in a 6-point game, that's pretty big. At the offensive end, MSU was okay, but they weren't at the levels we've seen. And I think that was a little bit disappointing too. So those were the things that I saw, and then people are going to talk about the 2 guard. And I just want to get this off my chest because there was some discussion about this on the Spartan Mag board.
I know where this is going.
Yeah. And, people will be hung up on, well, Curtain and Trey Fort were whatever, a combined 1 for whatever they were. And Tane's only basket was on a lob. Tane was 1 for 2, 1 for 7 between the 2 of them. Okay, true. Those guys did not deliver. Kerr's shots, I think almost all of them, or maybe all of them, came like in the first 6 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they came in a flurry early. That's not to discount them. 0 for 5 is 0 for 5. But my point is that wasn't an issue that remained throughout the game.
Yeah, right.
It was one segment of the game which they survived just fine. Trey didn't play a lot, and primary reason he didn't play a lot is because he wasn't guarding very well.
Yeah.
It was obvious. But there was a guy who showed up at that position. His name is Jordan Scott.
Yep.
Jordan Scott is a guy, there are 2 guys, Carson Cooper being one, Jordan Scott being the other, who I think can feel really good about the games they had. Jordan Scott was tremendous. He was competitive as hell on the boards. He was strong defensively. Some of the stuff he was doing doesn't even show up on the stat sheet. The deflections he made that don't lead to a turnover, but they save an easy basket, right? Rebounds that he competed for that he doesn't end up getting the board, but he caused it to be available for somebody else to get. He did all the things we've seen him do this year. I thought he held up generally defensively very well. And offensively, he saw 2 threes go down, which is a big thing. If he can take this game and build confidence as a shooter from it, let's just put it point blank. I'm talking about ceiling here. The highest ceiling version possible of this Michigan State team would be if Jordan Scott can be a starter and play, say, 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah,
I don't know if we're going to get there consistently. It's asking a lot of a freshman, but I'm telling you, it is obvious because he is every bit of 6'7", and he plays taller than that, I think, with his wingspan. The things he can do defensively as a rebounder, and if you combine that with him shooting, even just solidly, he doesn't have to be a 40% plus guy. If he's a 33% shooter from three, that is the highest ceiling version of Michigan State possible. So I was involved in a discussion where somebody, and I understand where it wasn't insane. Somebody's talking about, I don't understand why Trey's not playing the highest ceiling version of Michigan State. Where if they're going to be a true national championship contender, Final Four team, Big Ten champion, all of those things, they need Trey Fort to accelerate his development. And the only way you do that is by playing him. I understand that mindset, but if I've got the choice right now based on what I'm seeing, and I'm not even talking about the impact this could have a year from now, 2 years from now, I'm talking this year. If I've got to make a choice who I'm investing my minutes in to try to get somebody to reach a different level, it's Jordan Scott.
Yeah.
It's obvious now. None of us believed. It's obvious because we are seeing things that we didn't believe we were going to see in the preseason, which means he is able to play in high-level games with his strength and not just get by, but excel. Yes. He is a positive out there because of all the hustle plays he makes, the motor he plays with. And if he finds consistency with the skill part of his game, which again, I'll remind people was always supposed to be the strength, and we saw a glimpse of it today, look out. That's your guy. I'm not saying Trey Fort has no role. He does. He's got to get better defensively. I know that much. Kerr Tang, got to get better. Can't have Kerr had good looks, got to hit some. But I think the solution, if you want this Michigan State team to be the best it could possibly be, the best solution is Jordan Scott proving that he's got what it takes to be a regular, to be a starter, and not a guy who gives you 10, 12 minutes a game.
Yeah, welcome to everyone who's joined the chat. Please leave a comment below where you're coming from. I'm curious where you're watching from, especially if you're in the state of Michigan. But I don't know about you, Rod, but I feel like we saw this movie maybe even last year. Maybe we saw a team that had a freshman who was not anticipated to be a starter, to be someone who would impact the game as much as he did. Might have had a transfer come in who was expected to be a big scorer, to be a big offensive power, who didn't turn out to be one, left the starting lineup, returned back to a sort of a solid role player by the end of the season. This seems very familiar to me. I mean, you have a core that is very good, and we just have to sort of figure these things out. And it's easy to forget. We're 9 games into the season. Michigan State's 8-1, which we would have been obviously thrilled about this. 10 games ago, back in the exhibition.
Very good about it.
Right. We'd have said, we'll take it. We'll take it and run. You lose in the last minute to Duke at home. Well, you don't want to lose, but my goodness, that's a pretty good start. You've got a guy, Jordan Scott. I mean, I turned to my wife actually the first game because it was clear to your point, he was disruptive on both ends of the floor. I mean, well, certainly more the defensive end initially in the first half. I mean, he was tipping balls. I think he had a steal. He had 2 blocks. I mean, and like you said, a bunch of rebounds, or at least, deflections to lead to rebounds. And I turned to my wife and said, boy, if he just starts hitting shots, there's no question this is the guy you want on the floor. And then what does he do? He goes and hits 2 of his 4 threes. And you're like, okay, that's the guy we thought we were going to get. And I totally agree. He is, not only does he have the skills and the hustle, the sort of the innate, the sort of the intangibles that you want for a player, but he has the athleticism, he has the length, and he has the other sort of things you can't coach. He has those as well. I mean, you'd much rather have a 6'8" or 6'7", 6'8" wing who can jump and has got 7-foot wingspan or something like that as your 3 than someone who's not, if all things being equal. And those aren't even equal. I mean, this is, I don't think there's any question that he's going to be, that by the time this calendar turns by February, I think you're right. I think we're going to see Scott starting probably before then, much like it was with Jace. Just kind of has to get to the point where that happens. Because if he starts consistently hitting that shot, I don't see how you keep him off the floor.
Right. Yeah, I don't, you make a very good point, and I hadn't even thought about the Fiddler Trey Fort end of it. You're right. It Now, having said that, I am not setting Jace Richardson as my benchmark for the kind of season Jordan Scott's
No.
having, right? We want to be
Yeah.
clear about that. I don't think Jordan
Absolutely.
Scott is going to lead this team in scoring. I think you would, if you got a double-digit game out of him, you'd be thrilled. I'm not sure if he's
Sure.
had one yet. But it's in a broader sense, there's a base level similarity in that he's a guy you weren't sure what you were going to get as a true freshman, and you are finding yourself surprised by what he's doing. And better still, just as with Jace, I think you look at it and you have to say, well, yeah, this is sustainable. Like what he's doing is not something that, well, he's going to come back to earth. It's not somebody going out there and hitting six of 7 3 attempts.
Right.
And you say, well, that's not going to be who he is the whole season. No. The things Jordan Scott is doing in terms of his energy, his effort, his defense, his rebounding, all sustainable. I see zero reason that those won't keep up.
Yeah.
What we're saying is, I think, though, if the offensive skill part of his game finds a level of consistency, then there's absolutely no way that you can't give him a ton of minutes.
Yeah.
I think you're right too, in that the idea of imagine Jordan Scott is good enough to be your starter. That means you're now 6'7" and the most explosive athlete in the country at 6'6" on the two wings.
Yeah.
And you're 6'10", 6'11" inside. So you've got one small player at 6'1" in your starting lineup, and then everybody else is huge. You know who that looks a lot like? Duke. North Carolina.
Yeah.
It's a little bit smaller because Fears is smaller than those teams' point guards, but that's it.
Yeah.
And again, I want to be careful about what I'm saying here. There are roles and contributions that MSU needs from Kurtang and from Trey Fort. Absolutely. But if I'm presented with the choice, which of these three guys am I going to hope accelerates their process and finds consistency most? Which guy finding that level of consistency would leave Michigan State best off? There is no doubt, zero in my mind, that it is Jordan Scott, because of all the things he gives you tools-wise, effort-wise, energy-wise, toughness-wise. He's the thinnest guy on that team. And give or take Cam Ward, nobody else plays tougher than Jordan Scott. Now, because he's the thinnest guy, that doesn't always mean he wins every duel, every possession. But I'll take the guy who's mixing it up consistently just fine. I'll roll with that. So really impressed with him. Carson Cooper, somehow I didn't even realize 16 and 16?
Yeah, 16 and 16.
I knew he was doing the job in
rebounds, but yeah.
I knew he was doing the job in rebounding. I didn't realize he had scored quite that much. The funny thing is he left some stuff out there. He was one of those guys, missed a couple.
He went inside,
missed a couple layups that should have been converted. He had one reverse that absolutely should have been converted, but I do think it was probably, and anybody who's dealt with it knows, when you're going up against shot blockers and a lot of length, sometimes you don't finish. You're seeing things. You're feeling it, even when it's not there. But, man, put that aside. And the defensive job, I mean, Boozer eventually got his, but I thought Carson Cooper played a whale of a game defensively, too. I really do. And so I think those are the two guys that you feel absolutely best about. And then everybody else, I didn't think it was a great game for Cohen. He had moments, of course, like he's always going to have moments. I thought his energy was kind of in and out, and that can't be that way. We've been saying that now for 3 years. When Cohen Carr plays like his hair's on fire, that's a problem for the opponent.
Yeah.
When he doesn't, you don't get that consistent level of impact. I thought Jackson, obviously tremendous first half shooting the ball.
Right.
Give Duke credit. I mean, I've seen people say, why did Michigan State go away from Jackson? I don't think they went away from him.
No, they started covering it.
Yeah, they started defending the ball screen differently. They weren't playing with hard hedges and leaving him open. They discovered that, we can't disrupt Fears. He's going to make that play out of a double, and Kohler will hit those shots. So they stopped doing that, took away the threes, and then in the post, I thought they were really, if you watched, they were really shading coverage to him. They weren't coming often at least, with straight doubles. Well, they did once or twice, but they were shading guys to him. The only time I really saw that I didn't think Duke did it in the second half, Michigan State found it and got a bucket from it.
Yeah.
From Jackson in the post.
Yes.
But
he just had a nice slow move into the lane and just, finished.
Yep, and went up with the jump hook and delivered. But, look, can Jax do more? Yeah. I just want to make sure it's understood. There's another team out there too. And I think they very definitely at halftime changed the way they were dealing with Jax, because he was killing them 4 threes. He was just killing them. And they found a way to slow him down. Cam Ward, I alluded to it. From what they're saying, I don't think it's a pain thing. It looked to me like he just was not comfortable with that wrap, because he wasn't squeezing passes that were to him. He was fumbling. He didn't finish a couple plays around the rim. We know he's arguably their best finisher at the basket. So I think that really limited what he could do. I was reasonably happy in limited minutes with Divine. I thought I'll tell you what, the one play, which should be, it's unfortunate it came in a loss, but should be on a highlight reel at the end of the season. That play where Carson Cooper went between the legs to Divine, who then took it baseline, hit Jordan for the three. Unbelievable.
It was a great play.
I think Divine also hit a three, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he did.
So solid defensively. Nothing stands out. But again, my confidence level in him is way up. I'm feeling okay now when he's in the game running point, when Jeremy's getting a blow. So,
yeah. Well, you'd like to get to the point with Divine that he's actually not coming in at the 2. I mean, I think, to your point, I think we think they look better with Jordan at the 2, and hopefully, either Tanger Ford hitting some shots.
The thing about Divine, though, just to correct, the thing about Divine is when they do play him at the 2, at the very least, you're going to get 2 things from him. You're going to get solid ball handling, a secondary ball handler, and you're going to get defense, So I don't think that's the worst possible outcome, but you're right. Ultimately, I think you would like to have some different answers there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we had Ward, who always finishes well. He was over 4 from the field, like you mentioned. I didn't even know he had a wrap. I couldn't figure out why he was missing the shots that he's normally making, because Jackson missing those shots, I mean, that's kind of been sort of his bugaboo for 4 years now. For as great as is with the threes, he just cannot finish sometimes as well as you feel like he should. I mean, I think it was 1 for 5 for 2-point baskets, and that those are all relatively short shots too.
Well, speaking just with Cam, the tell for me was there was a play where I believe Jeremy found him on a slip. It's the kind of play we've seen Cam make multiple times this year.
Yeah. Right.
And he couldn't squeeze the pass.
Yeah.
That Cam Ward has shown excellent hands. So to me was a tell that he's not comfortable.
And I had no idea he had that when I was at the game. I couldn't see that.
It was the same wrap we had on the bench the other night. It's a black wrap. I'm hopeful that it's one of 2 things that we'll see. Either he can play without it soon, or he gets used to it, because that was not the Cam Ward we're used to seeing. And by the way, that was a factor in this game. that they didn't have the Cam Ward they've had in every other big game, because, boy, they could have used him, right? In the paint on a day when you're not finishing plays, you figure the guy who's the best finisher among your bigs might make a difference. Yeah, maybe so. Not an excuse, but it's just the reality of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when it comes down to Boozer, who was in foul trouble, he was a guy you could not test. And you had Kohler, who was, aside from that one play where he went up over him, he just really wasn't able to go into anybody. He was kind of fading away in a lot. And there was a lot of that, which is interesting. A lot of fade away from Jeremy, from Carson, even from Tang, and from Kohler. And what was weird about that, I realized that Duke's 29th best block team in the country. I bet you they're not anymore, because they only had 4 blocks. It's not like they were blocking a lot of shots.
Boy, was this game, though, evidence of the proposition that shot blocking is not the only way to measure the effective length?
100%. Yes. Yeah. But it was even, I don't know. I mean, it started out, Michigan State had trouble just right from the tip with in the interior, the whole game. And even times that I thought shots that weren't even really contested, they were just kind of short arming them. And that's the one thing with Cone Carr. I mean, aside from just an effort thing, he's got to get a reliable jumper, because you think he'd be a great player to put in on a zone like that at the free throw line, right? Because that guy can attack. And I think that's also what hurt their offensive rebounding too quite a bit, frankly, just because if you're not attacking inside, you're just launching threes, you're not going to get many of those rebounds, and you're not able to exploit the defense. And usually Michigan State has no trouble carving up the zone. There are times when they haven't, like Indiana was it last year, or was it 2 years ago?
Last year,
where they just were totally discombobulated for some reason. I mean, I think maybe Jeremy was sick too. I can't even remember if that was the game Jeremy didn't play, but anyway, there are times when it happens. Syracuse, of course, NC tournament, everyone has nightmares about that. Someone mentioned earlier here on the chat. We always remember those, but most of the time I feel like Michigan State just destroys zones, because they have a huge rebounding advantage, and they also are just able to pass and at least have someone who can operate well at the free throw line to distribute. But, again, part of that was Duke's length, which is also probably some expansion. What happened with Syracuse in the NCAA tournament too. They were really long, and that's why Boeheim always had a good
Boeheim always
zone defense, because he had special guys he recruit for that, basically.
That's right. I give Duke credit. A lot of what happened, I think, is a result of what Duke was able to put on the floor, and that those guys were able to do something that they're not asked to do very often and execute it well. They don't play a lot of 3-2, but they played it for a very important stretch today, and give them credit, they executed.
Yeah.
But if you're Michigan State, it's not as if that zone was impenetrable. There are things that you can, as I said, sometimes they were too cautious, and sometimes they weren't cautious enough. And that's what a zone, that really in a nutshell is what the aim of a zone is. It's to make you feel uncomfortable, to take you out of sync. And that's what it did to Michigan State. They never really seemed to break it. When you see Michigan State attacking a zone well, it looks very, very easy, right? Because that's the reason you don't see teams play a ton of zone generally anymore, is because it's too easy. Generally, I'm not talking about when Duke is playing it with all their length or whatever, or Syracuse, but generally, it leaves you vulnerable to too much. But today, Michigan State could not make them pay for that. They couldn't do the things that you need to do in order to break a zone down, which is essentially get into the gaps, force the defense. That's the thing. People will talk about Jeremy 0 for 10 and this guy 0 for 5 and all that. Well, part of the reason those numbers are what they are is Michigan State was not generating the kind of looks you want to generate. Inside out is what you want against a zone. Those are going to be your highest quality shots. And if you generate enough of those, you will, generally speaking, hit a good number of them. Michigan State was not able, a lot of the shots they took against that zone, they might have seemed like there was a window, but the rhythm is different. It's not the same thing. And they consequently, they did not shoot well enough. Now, we're saying all this all this criticism about shooting, I think Michigan State was 36% on threes for the game.
They were, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They weren't strong in the second half. I think they were only 2 for 9, but you get my point. Shooting was not, you could say, it's why I don't want to say shooting is where they lost it. I would say execution is where they lost it in the second half, which is a broader thing.
And I think it's important too to point out that the only way to beat a zone is not just by shooting threes over at the top of it. I mean, to your point, it's causing disruption in the zone in some way, causing to distort and leave you with open shots, either in the, either like a backdoor cut or something like that, or you have easy offensive rebound, put back, or you kick it back out to somebody who's open because you forced the zone to move in some way. And it's also why with the modern game, as we talked about in the pregame, mostly ball screens, pick and roll. Well, it's a lot harder to do that with the zone. And so you have to just run your defense or offense differently. And just didn't execute it well. And maybe they haven't practiced it much this year. I'm sure that's what Izzo will probably say too, that, we just haven't worked on that. And so anyway, it's unfortunate that it sort of turned out that way, but I'm not super worried about it because, again, it's so early in the season. And it was against Duke, so it's not like they're playing a bunch of chumps.
I guarantee you that Michigan State was not coming into this game thinking we're going to see a lot at winning time. We're going to be seeing exclusively 3-2 zone. No way.
Yeah,
Shire wouldn't have said that. So that much is definitely true. I doubt it was a huge part of the scout.
Right.
Now again, that's not an excuse. Duke did it. They executed well, and Michigan State did not. Credit to Duke. But it's an explanation, not an excuse.
Exactly. And as Ken Chu pointed out, it was 2-point shooting was the problem. And I agree, that there's plenty of opportunities to finish and they weren't doing that. Well, let's move on then, talk about the players keeping the gutter, brought to you by the brothers at Just You Gutters. And that, of course, was Cameron Boozer, which you took my wife's advice to pick Cameron Boozer as the player to keep in the gutter. Friends, it's time to make sure your gutters are taken care of. I know I have a little bit of snow and stuff built on my leaf guards, so my gutters actually still function just properly and just fine. I don't have any leaves in there, so they're going to drain just properly, and it keeps the water away from my foundation because I had the brothers take care of that 2 years ago, and they still work great. So make sure you contact the brothers. If you've got problems of yours, they'll come out even in this kind of weather, and they'll take care of things. If you've got a problem with the downspout, whether it's your business, your home, whatever it might be, 10% off. You mentioned Final Four when you get your estimate. You can do that at our support page at tffinots.com/support. Call them today. You'd be glad you did, whether they're on the east or the west side of the state. They got you covered, and they'll take care of things lickety split. So Cameron Boozer, it was an interesting game as a game of two halves, right? He had 2 points the first half, and I think I had sent you a text at maybe halftime or something, but he was incredibly passive. They were not, even when he had sort of an isolation and an opportunity to sort of go one-on-one, he didn't really attack Carson. He tried to get his other teammates involved, which, whatever. It was obviously working okay. They were only down 3. And he had then the second half, there's clearly a concerted effort from the Duke staff that, all right, Cameron, we're going to get him the ball inside. We're going to isolate him, get him, put Carson Cooper on an island. And he's able to get some work done. Not a ton. I mean, he scored 18 points. So he had 16 and a half second half. So I shouldn't say he didn't do a ton, but it finished with 18 points, 7 of 13 from the field. So pretty efficient, even though he didn't have a whole lot of attempts. Just 1 of 3 from 3, 3 of 4 from the foul line. So I think he averaged 7 free throws a game. So that's a little bit under his average. Right. I think where the biggest impact was on the defensive side. He had 15 rebounds, 11 of those defensive, and he was pretty much cleaning up everything that Michigan State was tossing up, especially in the second half. And so I think that was a big key to sort of him on the defensive end, and that to prevent Michigan State from getting anything going on the offensive boards. He also had 5 assists, just 1 turnover, a couple steals, had a block. So I don't know what you think. I don't know. I can go back and see what everyone else thought, but I thought not that he went off and he was overflowing the gutters, we'll say, but I think maybe partially slowed down a little bit.
I'm of two minds. Look, it's very hard to say. A guy who puts up 18, 5, and 5, also has 2 steals and a block, only 1 turnover, didn't have a really good game, right? Of course he did, and especially the second half when Duke comes back from a 3-point halftime deficit and wins. Yeah, give him credit. He made big plays, right?
Yeah.
But I also look at the totality of it and say he was 5 points under his scoring average. He only got 13 field goal attempts, and he hit 7 of them, so it was reasonable efficiency.
Right.
But nothing outlandish.
Yeah.
You know, only got 4 free throw attempts. Didn't get to the line much. I guess they clearly didn't keep him in the gutter. But if you had told me beforehand that those would be his offensive numbers, I would have taken that. Absolutely, I would have taken that.
Well, the game was there. I mean, you could say the game was there and they had an opportunity to win.
Yeah.
So
I think they didn't, he's a guy who he's already done it. And you could argue he did it against Florida and in their previous game. And he's going to do it other times this year. I have no doubt, where he will just put the team on his back and just take over a game, either for long stretches or maybe 40 minutes. He didn't do that here. Now you can say some of it might have been some passivity, but I think Duke did change the way they were getting him the ball and they had him operate. In the second half, they were getting, it was something Jimmy Jackson talked about on the broadcast, but it was pretty obvious to me. Much more of a focus, getting him the ball in the middle of the floor and letting him kind of operate from there, rather than him getting the ball on the wings or down somewhere in the post where Michigan State could get more eyes on him. I thought we saw that. So credit to them for adjusting, credit to him for adjusting. But on balance, I think if you're Michigan State, you're reasonably satisfied with what happened with Cameron Boozer.
Yeah. So, I mean, you agree with the crowd that partly stopped. Still, some drips got through, but certainly not shut down, or mostly stopped.
Right.
So, yeah, I thought it was really interesting too, looking at the defense at those times, especially in the second half. It seemed like Duke would have their 5 out, so they all were outside the 3-point line. Jeremy was usually functioning, just operating actually like right under the basket. So he wasn't even on the guard a lot of times. He was just out waiting for something to happen, and then so he was almost like ready to double whoever came in, or it was just kind of an interesting way of, because it wasn't like you couldn't even have like 5 defenders out. So that way you wouldn't get the back cut. You'd have someone there in the backside but it was your point guard, which was, I thought, interesting strategy from defense for Michigan State. So I don't know. All right. So we have to do this part here. Who cleans the glass best?
The only silver lining.
Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids. The Squeegee Squad will take care of your windows in your home. They'll wash the side of your house with a nice gentle power wash, and they'll do it at any time on during the year. And so contact them today. They can come out even in the winter. They'll take care of things and probably get better pricing. You get 15% off too by just mentioning Final Four to Troy and his team if you're in the greater Grand Rapids area, and that includes Muskegon, Ottawa County, like Holland. And even if you're kind of like outside that region, get a hold of Troy. I bet you he'll be able to take care of you. His teams will go. They'll travel a distance to go take care of the job. And they're just the nicest people, and they can do the interior, exterior, whatever you need done. They can clean stuff off, and just a great business, great Spartan. And maybe we'll have some more news in the future here as things go on, which we can talk about later. So go to your support page at tffinots.com/support to get all the Squeegee Squad. So it was 4-3 going to this game. I had Kohler and Carr, which gave me 11 rebounds, 7 and 4. You had Ward, who only had 1, but you had Cooper, had 16. So you had what a game from Cooper. For his previous career high was 8. So he doubled it up in this one game, and he was a man. Although it's funny, even Izzo after the game, at least on the radio we're listening to as we're driving home, was criticizing Cooper's like, there are a bunch of rebounds he gave up on the free throw line, the free throw cut-ins and stuff.
Right.
And he's not wrong. It's just
no, but it's right. He should have had 20, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Unbelievable from him, even with the mistakes you can point to correctly. But 16, I mean, did we think we would see a 16-16 game from him ever this year?
No. Well, I don't
never
think
mind against Duke.
16. But yeah,
I mean, yeah, it was. Yeah, I needed it because Cam obviously was not going to be capable of delivering, and that puts me up 5-3, right?
You're up 5-3, up 2, and now you get to pick first too. So you like
And
have the ball.
you
So
lost a Jackson game. That's
yeah,
tough.
I lost the Jackson game. I was I so I do think there was a bit of conspiracy because I think we didn't know that Ward was going to be out the last game, and he was, and so I was basically the contest was over before it even started. And then yeah, you picked Ward not knowing, although you're pretty sure he was going to play, and I guess it ultimately didn't matter this game anyway. But yeah, to pick up Cooper and for him to be so good. But one of the things about the rebounding was interesting, and we'll move on just a second, is watching Jackson play against Duke versus other teams. He does a great job getting positioned. He anticipates where the ball's going. We've talked about it. Like instinctively, he sort of has a feel for where the ball's going to end up. But you definitely see his limitation from an athletic standpoint, that a lot of times he has to sort of tip the ball and tip it back to himself. But the problem is when you're tipping the ball even a little bit when you have a bunch of guys who are about your size and they're more athletic, it gets out of your, well, you lose control of it. And so I saw that a little bit. And that's the one difference with Coop, where Coop just can jump up and just grab it and end the possession there. So
there were also times too where I thought Duke's length. There were times where a Michigan State player, and I'm sure it was Jax on some of these occasions, had good position.
Yep.
And a Duke player just went over him because he's that much taller or more athletic or both. Yeah, look, Jackson still had whatever he had, right? Seven boards, 2 offensive. Not a bad game by any means, but just not quite what we've come to expect. And I think you're right. I think that we know, and none of this is a surprise. We knew coming in, Jackson Kohler, like everybody else on the team, is not a perfect player. There are positives and negatives to the whole picture, and the positives far outweigh the negatives. So that's why we appreciate him being on the team and all of that. But there are situations like that. That's where I honestly do think this was a game where you really could have used a full horsepower Cam Ward.
For sure.
Because Cam Ward presents a little bit different element, and I think it might have helped a little bit there. I mean, what did Jax play? Jax played 30 minutes.
Yeah, 30 minutes. Yeah, I think he put 25 is about a perfect spot for him. He's a little fresher. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
So that was, again, I come back to a reason why, and it's not an excuse. It's just an explanation. Having a fully functional Cam Ward probably makes a little bit of a difference here. Enough to change the winner? I don't know. But I think it would have made a difference.
I agree. All right, so then we get to 5 Keys of the Game, brought to you by Nudge Printing. Head on over to nudgeprinting.com and nudgeprinting.com/win, where you can enter right now for a free backpack from North Face. It's a Gruff Sparty. It's almost $100 value. It is really sweet. Even if you, who doesn't need a backpack at some point for traveling or whatever, or you may have a nephew or a niece or someone who has a use for it. Head on over. It's a free drawing. We'll draw at the end of the month. So just cost you an email address. It's super simple. And while you're over there, you can check out all the rest of the stuff at Nudge Printing. Fantastic stuff. I'm wearing my whiteout sweatshirt here with my Spartan logo. Super comfortable hoodie. It's like they are my favorite. All the different things. My son was wearing one of my other sweatshirts with the dunking Gruff Sparty with this sword and dunking or whatever. But again, great stuff from Nudge Printing. I can't recommend enough. 20% off. You type in the coupon code TIFNOTS. That's TFFINOTS at checkout. So that just makes it even better. Great time to get stuff before Christmas. Get those gifts for the people who are special in your life. All right. So 5 keys of the game. The first key of the game, it was the boards. And this is one where we certainly thought if Michigan State had a good decisive edge, it would be something they probably needed this game. It turned out Duke ended up out rebounding Michigan State 44-43, mainly during the very end of the game. Michigan State had 13 offensive rebounds to Duke's 10, and Duke had a lot of those late, which I think really helped them close the gap a little bit in the end and then get them the lead. So Michigan State had a 28.9% offensive rebounding rate, which is not good. Duke was 29.4%, which is not good either. But that's Michigan State needed a bit more, and Michigan State was better early, but then I think probably when the zone got introduced, that's probably when they kind of stopped because they weren't getting any rebounds, and Cameron Boozer was just getting everything.
Yeah, it's very definitely, if you want to, and again, a lot of people are going to focus on the shooting and the lack of offensive execution late, but if you look at the totality of the game, I think Michigan State not having the edge that we would have all expected on the glass was a big factor.
Yeah.
And
there were points 10-8, right? That's all you, that tells you right there. Only 2-point edge.
There were points in this game where it was operating the way Michigan State needed it to. I don't have the breakdown in rebounding by half, but I suspect that the numbers at halftime, I know Michigan State had an edge in offensive rebounds in the first half, and I suspect they had an edge in offensive rebounding rate as well. I think that would have been
they were almost 40% at one point in the game, and I don't remember when I looked down. They were,
yep. And then it just stopped. And again, that's one thing, one of the old standards is a zone is vulnerable to offensive putbacks. And Michigan State did not get much of any of that going against that zone. So it was another way in which execution against the zone was not where it needed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly we need a bigger edge than 2 points there. So second key to the game was Boozer. And I think we kind of talked about this quite a bit. Like this sort of just slowed him down enough that it wasn't as dominant as he could have been. Cooper did a good job. They gave them the opportunity to win. So I think that's probably all you can ask in a game like that with a guy who just, they contained him sort of.
Yeah, I would, on balance, I am not unhappy with the job that they did against Cameron Boozer. It's one of these situations, and we've said it in relation to a couple of guys already we've seen this season. He's so good, no matter what you do, he's going to get his some of the time. You're not going to shut. That's why the first half was remarkable. He only had 2 points.
Right.
Like, you may never see that again this year. But the fact that they were able to keep him limited in the sense that he did not take over the game, even the second half, he had 16 points. It was a good half. I don't think that's why Duke won it. I think you look at plays, especially late. You look at that three that who was it? Isaiah Evans hit that, frankly, probably should have been the fifth foul on Cameron Boozer. They didn't call it, where he wiped out Jeremy Fears on a screen. But whatever, they didn't call it. Evans still had to hit the shot. I thought Foster, who ended up with 12 points, but boy, it seemed like the vast majority came late. He made some big plays. So it wasn't as if Cam Boozer just took the game over at winning time.
Right.
Other guys were making plays in those stretches too. I'm okay with the way Michigan State played him because he didn't take the game over.
And third key to the game was strong with the ball. And this is interesting because, Michigan State had only four turnovers in the first half, which I think they had 4 turnovers in the first 3 minutes against Iowa or something like that. And they were all steals by Duke. Michigan State finished the game with only 5 turnovers. Duke had 6 in the first half, and they finished with 8. So not a huge difference there. What was interesting is that points off turnovers, it was a 10-4 edge for Michigan State. So they made hay with the Duke turnovers. And especially in the first half, they got definitely some transition buckets. And the fast break points, it was 17-6 edge to Michigan State, which was obviously not all just due to turnovers.
Yeah, really happy with the job Michigan State did in terms of ball security. Now, again, neither of these teams gamble. They don't try and pressure a ton, but still, man, it over the last 30 years, how many times have we seen Michigan State even have issues with turnovers against teams that are similarly not applying pressure, just because the game pressure that's involved or trying to play outside of yourself. In fact, this was a game when you look at the impact that Duke's defense and everything that concerns that had on Michigan State, it wouldn't have been shocking to have seen them commit more turnovers, because you get into situations where you're out of sync, or you're trying to do too much.
Yep.
Or you're being too passive on the other end. And for them to only have 5 turnovers, that's something you can look at as a plus in this game for sure. I mean, Jeremy Fears, again, I understand 0 for 10 is going to be in a lot of people's minds, but 13-1 is in my mind too. Yeah. That's also part of the story.
Yep, for sure. So the fourth key to the game was the foul line, and this is one where Michigan State was really good against Iowa, forcing action and getting really aggressive and getting to the line 25 times. This game, they were only 10 of 14. They're 5 of 6 in the second half. Shot 71% from the line. Carr struggled a little bit from the free throw line, and Duke really made hay in the second half. They were only 3 of 4 in the first half, and the second half they were 12 of 19. So that's where they really got there a lot. They definitely was an emphasis for them. I mean, they didn't shoot very well. They were at 50% for a while. I think they're like 7 to 14, and then they hit 5 of their last. I think they had 5 in a row or something like that to finish the game.
If you're in John Shire's chair, you're looking at this and saying, guys, this could have been a laugher if we shot free throws well.
Right,
relatively speaking, could have been a more comfortable victory. I did think Michigan State frequently in the second half, meaning more than once, was the victim of some really questionable no calls.
Well,
on shot attempts.
By Cooper, I mean, who just got wiped out with his.
Yeah, there were multiple. There was another play by Carson that wasn't a dunk, that should have been a foul. There were a few that would have been shooting fouls. But all that said, I thought Michigan State did just fine in the first half. They put those guys in foul trouble. They had 8 free throw attempts. You'd like more than that, but that's not wildly off the mark. But they just, to only get 6 in the second half, not good enough. Yeah. And again, it was, a lot of that was because the zone slowed them down, and they weren't able to be aggressive against it. They weren't able to create contact. And so when you're forced into playing more passively, that's going to mean you're not getting the kind of opportunities at the free throw line that you want. So they shot it decently when they got there, but there's not nearly enough.
Yeah, boy, Jeremy is so good at baiting fouls. It's crazy. Like, he'll change speeds because he knows the guy's right on his hip, right behind him. He'll stop suddenly and forcing contact. And that's a lot of fouls in the first half. He's just kind of forcing them. Yeah, guys who are off balance or whatever, right?
And I'd be curious. I don't know if you heard Izzo. I didn't. But it seemed to me that Michigan State in the first half was able to be in transition, or we'll call it semi-transition, with more frequency. And those are situations where there's kind of a scramble going on. Yep. Where Jeremy's really good at creating those kind of things. And I didn't think they had nearly as many of those chances in the second half. So I credit Duke for not giving it up, but that was a factor too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Izzo did mention the post game, at least on the radio show. I mean, I don't know what he did in the post game conference. He just says a little bit more then. And the fifth key to the game was jump shooting. Michigan State ended up shooting 32% from the field, really poor. 36% from 3, which is a little unusual. 8 of 22, which I think we both said before the game that if they're shooting the 20s for number of threes, that's probably a bad sign. Even though they did shoot it pretty well. I mean, you shoot 36% from 3, you're probably pretty satisfied with that performance. But that was largely the backs of Jackson Kohler, who just went on a heater there in the first half and hit 4 of them. And I don't know. I mean, I guess the thing I come away with the game, and especially with Jordan Scott hitting 2 of 4, this team they're going to be okay. They're not going to be great, but they're not going to be like they were at the beginning of the season either. That's just my feeling. And
right.
And like, you said they're streaky. I think that's true. They're going to have some games where they're probably like 40, 50%, and then other games will be down in the 20s, but it's not going to be enough of their game probably. But you definitely saw with Jackson in the first half that when he's hitting those, I mean, it totally changes, I mean, obviously he's scoring 3 points. It's a very impactful.
Well, even when I say that they're streaky, that can even be the case within a game. And you could make a pretty good argument. Like the middle 20 minutes,
Yeah.
They were pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
The first 10 and the last 10, not so much.
Yep.
You know, and I think that's just kind of how it's going to be. That's the kind of shooters they have. But look, jump shooting from 3 was not an issue today. Jump shooting from 2, absolutely.
Yeah.
And more than that, obviously the inability to finish around the rim was a huge problem too. But you know, we go back to Cohen Carr, had some good looks from 2, couldn't hit them. Kurtang had some, didn't hit them. Jeremy Fears really struggled with shots that he's been hitting for the most part. So on and on we go against a defense that can take away a lot of your normal efficiency at the rim. Generally speaking, you're going to have to convert the chances you get further away from the rim. And that's where I think that in-between game, Michigan State was not nearly good enough. I mean, from 2 in general, Michigan State was, let me make sure I got my math right here, 13 for 44.
Yeah.
That's miserable.
Yeah, the sub 30%.
That is miserable.
And it's not like they're long Josh Langford 3-2s. I mean, they're like shooting inside of 5
it was everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, Duke, who came into the game shooting 65% on 2s, was 12 for 26, sub 50%. So Michigan State did a good defensive job as well.
Yep.
Against them. Let's not lose sight of that. Duke did not have a pretty offensive day either. That was a grinder kind of game, you know? And normally you would say if you're Michigan State, you're okay with that because you feel pretty good about your chances to win that kind of game. Didn't work out that way today, but look, I mean, I think we've run through all of these. My bottom line is this. It's frustrating a little bit because you had a game against a high-level opponent that was there to win. You could have won it, and you didn't. That's never going to be anything but frustrating, irritating, however you want to describe it. All fair. But let's just be honest. It's December 5th, right?
Yeah.
You can't, just because you've won some games, it doesn't change. I would have said this if Michigan State came into this game 5-3. These games are useful because they're measuring sticks primarily. They give you a level check, and that's kind of the bottom line. It can, yes, it can help you in March, but Michigan State's not going to be hurt by this loss. You know, they might have gained a little bit if they'd won it, but not going to be damaged.
No,
not really. I mean, if you say, well, if they'd had this one, it makes getting a 1 seed easier. Listen, if they do what they want to do in the Big Ten, they'll get a 1 seed. Right. And if they don't do what they want to do and expect to do in the Big Ten, this game wouldn't have mattered anyway from that perspective.
Right.
So this is, and I'm not making excuses. You've heard me say this in years where Michigan State has struggled in November and December. These are almost all upside scenarios because you learn some things about yourself. Michigan State learned some things. They learned things that they cannot do that are non-negotiables. You cannot give up multiple offensive rebounds on missed free throws. You can't do it. You've got to be able to find a way to execute properly against a zone if you're presented with that. You know, those are things that you don't get a chance to learn about yourself when you're playing the Little Sisters of the Poor. You get the chance when you play another top flight team. And I thought, you know, again, 2 minutes to go, you got a tie game. You played reasonably well. A lot of things you'd like to do better, a lot of things to clean up, but on balance, I can't get too angry at that. I can get frustrated that they didn't close it, but is it Jesus? I mean, I think even after this game, what it tells you is, hey, Michigan State's got a chance. If you can do that and be in position to win on a day where you left a lot on the table. You feel that way. You didn't do a lot of the things you normally do well, and you were still there.
Yeah.
What is the potential of this team? It's extremely high. So I've lost none of that feeling of optimism that I had that were generated by the 8 games that came before this. None.
Yeah. Again, if you're talking to us before the season starts and I tell you Michigan State's 8-0 going into the Duke game and 2 minutes remaining, they're tied and both teams are undefeated. You're like, I'll take, you wouldn't even think about twice about it. And I think also the way the game transpired makes a difference too, right? I mean, we went through all that, we've gone through all of it, but had this game been like the other times in the Breslin Center where it's 20-7 or something like that, right? You know,
other Duke games,
under 8 or something against Duke.
Yes.
And you're just like, you're always double digits behind, maybe you cut to 8 and then you're back up to 14-15. It wasn't like that. It was a game where, they led
the biggest
amount of the game.
The biggest lead anybody had is the number that it ended at.
Right. Yeah. Michigan State was up 5 with like 45-40.
Duke's biggest lead was 6 on a couple of occasions, including the end. Mm-hmm. And Michigan State's biggest lead was 5.
Yep.
That tells you, I mean, the lead changed, I think, 11 or 12 times.
Probably. Yeah.
Maybe more than that.
Right.
But it was played in a very narrow, tight window, which is pretty much what we expected when we talked about it. We had said, hey, Michigan State's probably going to get an opportunity to learn something. That's maybe the biggest thing, is you get the opportunity to learn how do we function in a tight game. Well, they didn't function very well in a tight game down the stretch in this one. That's absolutely fair to say. But if that's going to be a problem for you, the only way you find out that it is, go through it. And the way that you improve, unfortunately, oftentimes, is you have to take it on the chin in order to get better. And they took one on the chin. I'm sure that entire team, entire coaching staff feels extremely frustrated because that game was there to win and they didn't do it. But it also should mean, hey, we're that close.
Yeah. Well, that's life too, right? Bill Sells from said Michigan State played very poorly. Still a chance to win tonight. Feel more confident about after tonight. This team can beat anyone in the country. Love the show. Watching from Texas. Bill, you're missing all the snow. What are you doing down in Texas?
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, I think
that sums it up well.
I wouldn't go that far. I don't think you can.
Oh, that you're from Texas? Oh,
no, I wouldn't go that far with Texas. I wouldn't say that the totality of it, that my conclusion is, Michigan State played very poorly. I don't think that's fair. I think they did something. Sure. Look, they limited a lot of what Cam Boozer does routinely, right? We just cited 2 guys in Jordan Scott and Carson Cooper who played really good games. Jeremy Fierce, 13 assists, 1 turnover. I mean, these are, the first half, you talk about Jax not finishing 2s and all of that. You also have to include the fact he hit 4 threes in the first half. Right. I mean, there's the defensive job Michigan State did against an elite offensive team. Team came in shooting 65% on 2s, and they limit them to sub 50%. I mean, these are all good things. They didn't do quite enough of them, but I'm not prepared to say that they played very poorly. Yeah, they just didn't play to their potential.
Yeah, I think that's probably, and I'm going to guess that's probably where Bill.
I'm sure it is, but I gotta.
He just,
I gotta get. Yeah, I'm not knocking him. I just, sometimes you hear that stuff, and I'm just. One of the things we've always tried to do on this podcast from day one, and sometimes more successfully than others, is to understand and promulgate the idea that the world is largely in varying shades of gray. It is not black and white. It is never all brilliant. It is never all a disaster. And so I do, when the opportunity comes up to make that point, I do want to make it.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good point to make. I fall into that trap all the time by saying, this, whatever, that all politicians are, corrupt or something. Like, well, maybe most of them, but it's really got to be careful. So one other thing too, as far as play the game, our fans here split between Jordan Scott and Carson Cooper, which I think we probably agree with that they both did well. Although I would almost throw Jeremy in there, except you probably could make a reasonable argument with because of his offense from shooting standpoint was very subpar. So
if you'd asked me at halftime, I would have gone with Jeremy.
Yeah, no, I agree
because he hadn't taken that many shots. Most of his shots came in the second. And he was a little more impactful as a playmaker. The offense was running better in the first. I think he had 8 of his 13 assists in the first half.
Yeah.
So I would look, it's pretty hard to deny 16 and 16. I mean, I love the way Jordan Scott played. Loved it. But Carson Cooper's a player of the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. And that brings us to the last point, and then we'll get out of here. And I appreciate everyone hanging out and coming in late. So sorry. Well, next time we should be right after the game, after the Penn State game next Saturday. But looking at the Big Ten now going in, it's Michigan State we're going to game 2 here pretty soon at the moratorium that is Bryce Jordan. The Big Ten does not look as scary in the sense that I think that Purdue is overwhelmingly the favorite. I mean, they just got destroyed at Mackey today by the Cyclones, who are a good team.
I didn't see a second of it because it was opposite Michigan State, obviously.
My son's a Purdue Boilermaker, so he was watching the game. He was following the game on his phone, I should say.
That stunned me. I don't know that I will be more surprised by and again, no knock on Iowa State. Really good team.
Yeah, but
if you told me Iowa State would win, I'd be surprised. Because nobody wins at Mackey. They hadn't lost a non-conference game there in, I think it was 4 years or something.
Probably
been a long stretch. Yeah, you probably would have believed it was 10.
But 23 points. But wow.
The margin of it. And it was a second half blowout. Like I think it was a 3 or 4 point game at halftime.
Yeah. Well, Purdue shot really poorly.
Yeah, I guess Iowa State shot really, really well. But that I will not be more shocked, I don't think. Maybe if Rutgers had beaten Michigan today, I would have been more shocked. But boy, probably not actually, because I somehow would have found that more believable than Purdue getting beaten by anybody by 23 at Mackey.
Yeah.
But you're right. Let me finish. Go ahead and finish your point.
No, I was just going to say just that it makes me think that the Big Ten is more for a team that Michigan State, even after today's performance, which I thought was, fine. They just didn't come up with a win. That I don't feel as scared of all the other teams. I mean, yes, they're all really good. I'm not trying to say that they're not good, but I definitely see a path that's not unreasonable for Michigan State winning the Big Ten. Let's just say that. Put it that
Absolutely. Way. I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
I think that it's all there. Now you will have, Michigan won in another cakewalk today, but that's the worst team in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Credit to them. I mean, they beat them by far more than Purdue did. I don't want to belabor it, but I need to see Michigan's guards are very much, I'm from Missouri on that group. I understand they shot the lights out and they cut way down on the turnovers at the cash grab tournament.
Right.
And I'm sure they must have played well today to put up the numbers they did. But I want to see them come into Breslin and do that. Even after what happened today, I want to see them go into Mackey. I'm assuming they go to Mackey and do that. I'm not sold on that group yet. If you want to say that they've played the best of anybody, okay. I'm not going to argue with that.
Sure.
But I'm with you. I think that I see Illinois beat Tennessee, which is good for the league. I'm not sure that Tennessee or the SEC in general has put up the kind of resume that makes you think that's quite as meaningful as you might have thought that result would be a month ago.
Right.
But right now, to me, it's pretty clear that there is a big three. Clearly, I'm still not out on Purdue, even after today. Michigan's obviously done what they've done, and we know, I think we would both agree, Michigan State looks very legitimate.
Yeah.
I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody that would disagree with that.
Yeah, I think we talk about the tiers, and that's probably the first tier, and then you go on, and
then you got Illinois maybe sitting there in a tier of their own where you could see it maybe if they put more things together,
Mhm.
maybe edging into that top tier, but I don't think they're there yet. Not on balance with those other three. And then it's everything else. I mean, I looked
Yeah.
at the scores briefly. I was kind of out of pocket at largely after about an hour after the game until we started. I see that Washington, who's been a completely erratic team, which I kind of thought they might be, despite some people buying into the transfer portal shit. They beat USC, who is another transfer portal centric team that was undefeated up until this point, but I didn't feel had beaten anybody really good. And Washington goes in and beats them. They're no longer unbeaten.
Yeah.
IU was undefeated till they got shellacked by Minnesota, just physically shellacked the other day by a bad Minnesota team. Let's be honest. And then IU follows that up today by losing again to Louisville. I think we can safely say Indiana's not in the top tier or likely to be.
Right.
And then, Ohio State, they beat Northwestern today, barely. But they've lost to Pitt.
UCLA.
UCLA's got problems. They won today against Oregon. I think we were talking just before we started. I think this might be it for Dana Altman. Oregon's been awful. And I understand they've had some injury issues, but this is now, they've lost 5 or 6 in a row. I mean, if they can somehow, and I thought they would be a very good team because they had those Shellstead and Biddle. They had those two guys, and that's a great platform to start from. But it's not working. If they can claw out a tournament bid somehow, hats off, because they are burying themselves at the moment. And then there's a bunch of others. Yeah, like Maryland has not come together thus far.
Not good. Iowa might be, I was kind of
Iowa probably is in a position where you look at it and say, well, yeah, you could easily see that team being 6th.
Sure. And I haven't seen Wisconsin play. That's the only other team that
struggled. I mean, Wisconsin's got the potential, I think, to be better, but they have not been great. So
they played Marquette today, right? So I don't even know if they won that game.
I don't know if they played Marquette, but I mean,
they beat them. Oh, they beat them by 20. Yeah, they destroyed them. But Marquette's not good.
Marquette's way down this year.
Yeah.
So, but Wisconsin has taken they've taken 2 losses already. Yeah, and they're not, they haven't played heavyweights yet either.
Nope.
So I think you're right. I think even though the Big Ten, by comparison to other leagues, is probably the best of the bunch, I think we are starting to settle into an area where we can say, well, there's these 3 teams that look like they are legitimate Final Four level teams. And then there's one more that maybe could edge in there, but you're not quite as solid on yet. And then there's everybody else. And there's varying degrees within those other teams. But you're not, I mean, it's going, I know it's early and a lot can change and develop from here. But as we sit here right now, I would be shocked if we see anybody else in the bottom 14 teams finish ahead of any of those top 4 we just mentioned. I'll even include Illinois in that. Like, I would be shocked if anybody else in the league other than Purdue, Michigan, Michigan State finishes ahead of Illinois. So
all right, well, we better wrap it up there. We can appreciate everybody. Check out our support page at tffinots.com/support, the way to financially support the show, and you get an ad-free audio version of the show as well. Continue to like, share, subscribe, hype, whatever you need to do on YouTube. We really appreciate it. Continue sharing with your friends. We appreciate the growth, and make sure you join us as we have a week off for finals, but Rod and I don't have finals. We're old guys, so we don't do that anymore. So we just get a week off. I'll be back midweek with Dom. We'll go over the new standings as far as where he has the seeding 1 through 4, and probably maybe even start talking bubble. I'll have to see what he wants to do. And then we'll be back with the pregame for Penn State as Michigan State goes for their second Big Ten win in the comfy confines of the catacombs in Happy Valley. So until then, the Final Four is not on the schedule. Go green.